Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're doing a good old-fashioned growth updates video, which I've been looking forward to filming for basically all week because I haven't been able to spend as much time with my plants this season as I would have liked. I went into the fall season with so much optimism, like everything's looking up from here. The plants were neglected a bit over summer, but no problem. They're not going to be heat stressed anymore. I'm going to be on top of the watering and stuff. But in actuality, I've been getting busier and will continue to get busier and busier for the foreseeable future. I'm currently in the middle of kind of like a career shift. That's not a total career change, but some professional development I'm gonna need to be going through and ramping up the work a little bit more. So if it wasn't very obvious, having seen my videos, I'm not a full-time YouTuber. So this is probably the most productive I've been in a long time in terms of both my work and my personal life, doing a lot of home stuff, pursuing other hobbies. So the plants have taken an unfortunate backseat, and I really appreciate YouTube for that reason, because it forces me to prioritize plant care on a weekly basis, because like filming day is usually when I water, I get in with my plants and like check for pests and, you know, just do a little bit of a general tidy up. The plant chores do pile up, but at least I can shave away a bit of it every single week. And it just kind of like centers me back in on my hobby when there are so many things pulling me in every direction. And it's all kind of like enjoyable things. I'm enjoying my life so much right now, but I do not want it to detract, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'll water tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into like 2 weeks. But what's been becoming very clear to me is that more downsizing is necessary for me to maintain a really happy, healthy relationship with my plant collection, because as I become busier, I don't see myself becoming less busy for a long time, and I don't want to let this collection be any sort of burden for me, and it currently isn't, but I think some calibration is necessary at this point, just so I have some more empty space that I can really focus on the plants I love the most. So after filming today, that is my plan. I have a whole bin of like dirty pots I need to wash. I need to stump some plants that haven't been doing really well and put them in a box somewhere. I do have a friend that is looking for like rehabby plants to bring back to life, so that's really nice for me to be able to give them away. And then after that, I do need to go to the hardware store and pick up some soil, but more on that later. The first plant I wanted to show you is one I keep changing my mind on what's my favorite specimen holdback from my Carla BVEP batch. But this one, it might be just because it has had the room to not get squished by other plants around it, but it is so stinking pretty. So this one is my Carla One Self by Carla GPH by BVEP Round. And this one I held back originally because it had thrips. Somehow it got thrips in a propagation dome, so I didn't sell it for a while. But then I was noticing as it was getting bigger that every leaf was very elongated. The petioles are kind of weirdly long for a Carla, like a mostly Carla plant. But these last two leaves, so this was the one before, this is the newest emergent leaf that is still a little floppy, have made me fall in love with this even more. So I've got this in like a pretty prime spot in my tent. It's right up at the very top. There are no plants touching it right now. It's getting quite a bit of light and it's looking quite clean and just a little spidery and just very elongated. And this new leaf, it's got such a pretty, I think it's showing up pretty like burgundy brown on camera, but it's quite a lot pinker in real life. Like all these veins here are a nice sparkly bubblegum pink. This batch had more than 100 plants, but a lot of them didn't grow to, like, they were kind of weak plants, so they were culled. A lot of them were sold, and every time I think that I'm down to like the last holdbacks, I feel like I find another bin of them. There's been quite a few that have had really, really minimal veins. Like I'll just show you, for example, this would be one of the very minimal vein ones that take more after BVEP, and there's been one that have thicker veins, very like could pass as a pure Carla, and there's been ones that have thin veins, a little bit rounder. This one is just like narrow with really, really pinstripe veins, and the way that the veins are, this one's just had a really nice balance of colorful emergent leaves, a little bit of pink that stays for a little bit of time. Like when it's fully hardened, there's only like a hint of pink in the sinus, with very pinstripe veins that are quite minimal. And this one in particular feels a little bit spidery to me. So right now I think I have 5 that I don't want to sell right now. That could change, but just to show you the other ones, this one's a little bit like smoother, but it's also quite dark. So one of the reasons why I really like this one is that there's like a little bit of like puffiness in between the veins. This one is quite flat. This might be one of the darkest ones I have that is very Carla leaning. This is the leaf before it, and it's almost fully black. And then I have this one, which I kept back because it's kind of like puffier. I don't really know how to explain it, but every leaf has been a little bit rounder, a little bit heavier on the top. Like this leaf was quite top heavy. And then we went to this leaf where the veins are just showing up quite simple. There's a new leaf coming out, so we'll see how that turns out. And then I had the last one, which is smaller, but it is turning out so cute. This one I threw into my tent for no good reason because it wasn't showing any particular trace. I was trying to hold back to see what it turned out like, but it's been getting prettier and prettier as time goes on. Look how simple that is. This probably has the most pinstripe veins of everything I've shown you so far today, and it's so narrow. The leaf before it was this one, and then the leaf before that was this one. I mean, from here it can totally change, but this one is just so pretty. I just love how the veins kind of just like taper off and fade off at the ends. So I'm very much looking forward to how this one turns out. And also this one is growing nicely and not getting damaged because it is in a spot where it's not touching other plants. This one, on the other hand, is in a bin, which is getting smushed. And also this one is smushing itself into the side of a bin. So needless to say, I do need to make more room. Like the bins are getting way too full because they were seedlings when they went in there and they're not quite seedlings anymore. Quick little update on my BVEP by SP Nova DF that I got from NXE Plants. This was in May, so I've had it for about 6 months. It has just put out a leaf and it's now fully flowering. It's already tried to flower once, but sometimes on the first inflow, it doesn't make it quite out of the sheath, so it kind of like rots within the sheath, but this one's fully out, it's fully opened. In case anyone's wondering what a BVEP by DF inflow looks like, it's very thin and small, and the spathe is quite thin and like a little bit curly too. It's only just starting to go into female phase. I don't know if you can see, you probably can't. There's a very small amount of stigmatic fluid on it. I repotted this from a 4-inch to a 5-inch, maybe like a month and a half ago or so. When Nick and Corbin gave it to me, it was potted in kind of like a DIY pot mix with lava rock and pumice and a lot of fluval stratum. And I only have like a little bit of stratum. So when I repotted, I didn't add any stratum. I just kept the original mix as much as I could. And then I put more of my DIY pot mix in it. So there's black lava rock, pumice. Once again, I have zeolite, some like actual lechuzapon in there. I also have classic orchiata in that mix as well. And it took a little while for it to get going again, but there's a good amount of new roots. I definitely didn't let it dry out, but some of the older leaves, the 2 oldest leaves are shedding. So this one and this one. But if it's flowering and pushing foliage and roots, I think it's fine, but it's getting more and more triangular as it matures. And I love the way it has this like puckered cheekbones and a little bit of twisting at the bottom. This is the leaf before it, which actually expanded way more than I thought it would. When it came out, I thought it would be pretty similar size to the one before, but it just kept expanding and expanding, and it's got such a nice shape. It looks so DF heavy. So this one, with the petiole being a little bit longer than this one, it does have the potential to be even bigger than this, which I'm quite excited for. But if it does produce pollen, I will keep it. I just don't know what would be the best thing to use it on. It would be really cool to sell this plant for sure, because there will be a lot of variability, I think, with ones that look like DF, like this one, and maybe ones that look a bit more like BVEP. But I also think it would be cool to cross it with Midnight Velvet, another really twisty, angular, triangular plant. But I guess I would have some time to figure that out. And for this one, if I were to sell it, to flower a couple more times in between and get a little bit stronger. But yeah, I really like how the BVEP really only shows through in the sinus and in the primary basal veins. I don't know what SP Nova DF emergent leaf colors are like. Is it like this? I would imagine this is maybe more of like a BVEP color. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how this leaf expands and what size it gets to and what it looks like fully hardened. So this next plant's not really an update, but more of like I showed it in my plant room tour, but it's such a long video that I wanted to give it a proper spotlight in a shorter video. This plant has really surprised me in terms of how much I've grown to love it, and it's the only one that I kept back from this batch, and it was not even an intentional batch that I made. That's my little Forgetii silver self. I believe it's a self. So this is the mother plant. This is the what I call the rhino skin Forgetii. And I think this was maybe around 2 years ago where it had put out an inflow and just it wasn't dying off, and then eventually it was very clear that it was producing berries, which was not something I had intentionally done. I wasn't sure if it had been pollinated by an insect or if it was just like a spontaneous selfing of its own. I don't know if that's something that Forgetii do, but all the offspring are very Forgetii heavy. They're fully peltate. Some of them are different shapes, but they all look very similar in terms of the venation. But this one is the only one I kept back because the veins were, I don't even have any of those original leaves anymore, but it just had quite like a broken silver vein look that looks a little bit interesting. So then I kept it, and it didn't really grow that well because it was in a bin. I kept getting underwatered, and then one day I just potted it into 4-inch. It already needs a collar or something, but it started growing so much better in my tent, and it's shaded from above by other plants, so it's in very little light, but it's been growing and sizing up. And this leaf I am obsessed with. I don't know if you can really see the texture of it. It's really bumpy on the back, and the margins are just so wonky, uneven on every single leaf. It's like that. Look at this one. It's so needly, but the margins are just not clean or straight by any means. And the veins just look so faded, like you were drawing with something with a marker that's running out of ink. It's just put out another leaf, so we'll see how this one turns out, but it's also looking very elongated, fully peltate as well. And I just love how dark it is. It's very, very black. The mother plant is very dark as well, but the mother plant has that rhino skin texture. This one doesn't have that rhino skin texture at all. It's just very bumpy, but it's like reverse bumpy. It's like bumpy on the back, and it's more dimpled on the front. It's really hard to explain why I like this plant so much. I guess I like it because it is kind of wrong in the sense that you kind of expect some sort of uniformity or symmetry with plants, and if there's something odd about it, you don't really expect it to repeat leaf after leaf. And it's just a little bit like, I refer to it as a badly drawn Forgetii because it resembles Forgetii in so many ways, but it's just slightly wrong in more ways than one. And I just like it so much. And I also really love how needly it is. So I don't think it needs a repot. It definitely hasn't filled out this pot. There's roots at the side. I don't know if you can see, but the roots are so thin on this, it doesn't really fill out the pot that much. So I do need to just put a little collar here, mostly to stabilize it and maybe get some more roots. Maybe it'll size up a little bit faster. I would love to see if it has the ability to really size up. I'm not very good with Forgetii, so I'm not going to, get my hopes up too much. But if it was really long and needly and maybe like 3 times the size of this one, I think that would just make my whole year. And I also would love to see if it can keep up this kind of messed up look into maturity, because it hasn't flowered for me yet, so it's not a mature plant. And this has become one of my favorite hybrids I've ever made. It's very unintentional, but I'm very glad it happened. A little update on a sprout that I had gotten from Pau and Josh, and I think this was maybe almost a year ago. Let me double check because I did make a video around that time. Okay. I finally found the video. It was from October of last year, so just over a year ago. They sent us some seedlings that they had made, and a lot of them were using Carla Pap as the mother plant. So this one is Carla Pap Carla Dress, and I was very pleasantly surprised by the size on this new leaf, and it's so pretty. Like, I love the lobes. It's so round, but it's kind of like just kind of squished in the middle, and it has these fat cheeks, so it's wider in the center of the leaf and it just tapers down. It's got a very pleasant shape. When I was looking at this newest leaf, I was reminded a lot of my contaminated Carla, which is from NSC Tropicals, open pollinated. I don't know what the pollen parent is, but it also has that very round on the top, round on the sides. It's a little bit more like a pita bread kind of shape, but it does kind of look quite similar to this one. The pap in this hybrid would be kind of like 25% of the genetics. Is very subtle, but I kind of attribute the very elongated taper on the leaf tip to that, because every leaf has a little bit of like a twisty taper at the end. Look at this one, is quite elongated. But I've been taking a few moments this week to admire and appreciate this plant, because every time I can very vividly remember a plant when it was just a 2-leaf nondescript sprout, and then I can contrast it with what I see today. It doesn't really wear off. Like that excitement and that kind of like awe of this is how we reproduce plants. That feeling of optimism when you buy a seedling and you're just kind of putting all your hopes and dreams of what it might look like, trying to make predictions in your head based on its parents. So for anyone who's new to Anthurium and you're collecting a lot of seedlings and you're impatient for them to start looking like proper plants, I'm telling you, time flies. Update on my Carlux. It has put out a new leaf and it is disgusting. It was actually my first time seeing it face to face because this leaf grew facing the tent wall and there's all these plants in front of it. So I didn't actually make the effort of pulling all the plants out to pull this plant out and look at it properly, but it is even better than I thought it would look like. It's so dark and hopefully you can see that it's very like rosy toned. The veins are like a baby pink, but the whole thing is just like this oily but warm toned black. And one thing I really love about this plant is that even though it's a luxuriance hybrid, it's not quite as lux heavy in the sense that the bellations are not quite as pronounced. It's relatively flat for a Lux hybrid. It is super, super black. And I do think that overall the leaf shape does resemble more Carla than Luxurians. And I do think that because it's a slightly flatter Lux hybrid, the shininess does read more oily than other Luxuriance hybrids, and I just love it so much. I do not need another Lux hybrid other than this. But the sad news is that while it did flower for me for its first time, and I was really excited to hybridize with this plant, it didn't produce pollen, and I don't plan to use it as a mother plant because it would just take too long to produce berries. I don't actually know how long the gestation period is on Carlux. I'm guessing it would vary a lot between specimens, but Luxurians, if we're going to say like a minimum of 12 months, Carla is really quick, like 2 months. Would it be like 50% down the middle, or would it be like anywhere in between? I'm not really sure. But what I do know is it's going to take quite a lot longer than a Carla would. So my plan was to pair this with my Carlablockiae. So it'd be Carlablockiae by Carlux, and it'll be like 75% Carla, 25% Lux. Hopefully you'll just get a lot of like very textured, maybe quite leathery looking Carlas. But all that to say, it didn't produce pollen on its first inflow. It did get sticky for quite a long time, but this is what I'm saying. Like a lot of times on the first inflorescence, it might skip one of the 2 phases, and this one skipped pollen. But that's okay, we've got a new leaf, and hopefully it will flower off of this leaf, and we'll try again on the next one. One thing I am worried about though is my Carla Wu1 which is my largest mother plant Carla. It does have a tendency to self itself, and I'm going to show you some seedlings I've gotten in the past, but this very last inflorescence, it went through all the phases, it was sticky for a little bit, then it went to pollen, and then it started to show that it was pollinated again. It has now since died off, but there was definite like berry formation starting on the spadix. Okay, so I mentioned that Carla Wu1 where I had used its pollen to pollinate another plant. So I pulled the pollen off of the spadix like this, and then I bagged it after, and then it started to make berries. So I'm pretty sure they're selflings, but I do have like the seedlings a little bit grown out to show you. So this is the biggest one, and it's just pushed another leaf, but it's looking very Carla to me. And here's another one, which the veins, the difference between this leaf and the leaf before it is pretty astounding, but the veins are getting really thick, and it also looks very Carla. And the petioles are square. They're red. They do pretty much look like a straight up Carla to me. So these 2 are the biggest ones. Here's another smaller one. It's not looking great, to be honest. You see the roots it's rooted in there, but the leaves are not looking very healthy. But here's the newest leaf. It's way, way, way smaller than this one. And then update on my seedling batch that I made with Charmaine. So the parent plants are Forgetii Ralphinum by Dress Carla F2. So I have that cross from that batch. Charmaine has another specimen from that batch. We smashed them together, made a second generation. The seedlings are sizing up so well. I've sold a bunch of them. I sent some to Pao and Josh to sell on Palm Street. We sold some last website restock. I just want to show you how so many of them are having the reddest veins. I think the color correction is making this a little less pronounced, but it straight up looks like Swiss chard. The veins are red, but it's kind of like bleeding all over the leaf blade, so it does look very blood vessel-y. Here's another one that looks very, very blood vessel-y as well. I don't know, it's hard to tell if the red is showing up. It's not really showing up that strong. Maybe the back will show more red. No, not really. But here's an update on one of the bigger ones. This is one that didn't sell on the website. So the mother plant, which is my plant, has blister variegation. And I've been observing some of them that don't have blister variegation yet, but are warping in that same way that blister variegation makes them warp. So this on top is not blister variegation, but it's got that warping. And then on this new leaf that's not fully expanded yet, it has that kind of twisting. So this was definitely one to keep an eye on. And then this morning I was just like organizing the plants that did sell. Someone had bought one, and on the picture itself, it had a new leaf, but that leaf was still scrunched up, so you couldn't really see any features of it. But since then it has expanded a little bit, I do think that it's going to have blister variegation, but I don't want to say for sure. So I'm not going to say which one it is, but I feel like someone's getting a blister variegated one, which I don't know. I feel like people are kind of mixed on what they think about blister variegation, but I'm usually of the opinion that it usually detracts from the overall appearance of the leaf. But for my particular mother plant, there's something I actually kind of like about it, because it's only ever on the very top part of the leaf or on the lobes and the sinus, and it's never really over the leaf blade, and it doesn't make the leaf like twist in weird ways. So it doesn't make the plant overall look unhealthy. But I feel like if this plant turned into a plant that has all over blister variegation, it might look a little bit like a Shangri-La pothos, like that very wilted spinach look. We will see. I'm not selling this plant anytime soon, at least until I see that it's a healthy, you know, robust enough plant. But anyway, that's just a little update on my little seedlings. I almost forgot, I do have a little bit of a thought process update on substrates. In case anyone's curious, I have been going through like more trials on tree fern mixes this year. So to kind of recap my tree fern soil journeys, I started with tree fern fiber, kind of amended, perlite, all that stuff with Pro Mix High Porosity Myco Mix, and that mix is what made me fall in love with tree fern soil in the first place. And then when I was done using the Myco Mix, I moved to a sea soil mix, which was my attempt at trying to find a peat alternative to my tree fern soil mix. That did not work great. A lot of plants hated it, some were fine, but overall it was pretty much a miss for my anthurium. So then from there, I just kind of went into tree fern amended with DIY pond, but very heavy on the pond mix, which I have enjoyed for root growth. But as with all these substrates, I wanted to give it at least a season or two to really assess what I think about it compared to like that plant's behavior in another substrate and see if I see any differences. And I want to say with the tree fern pond mix, I don't think that the plants are growing quite as fast as when it was in tree fern with the Myco Mix, the HP Myco Mix. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, because when the plants are growing too quickly, I don't think I have the capacity to keep up with it right now. But I am thinking of starting to reintroduce the Myco Mix back into my tree fern. I think mainly to stretch out my tree fern, but I am curious to see if I can jumpstart any plants that have slowed down in the last 6 months with the Myco Mix again. I just remember being so head over heels in love with that mix, and I just haven't really been buying substrates so much lately. I've been just trying to use down what I have. So now that I'm at a point where it's harder for me to repot things because I just don't have enough substrate, it's time to, you know, start looking at what to get next. And I think I do want to go back to Myco Mix mixed with tree fern, just see if plants can kind of start growing quicker again. But anyway, that is all the updates I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.